Hi, welcome back to the Caleb Adamo channel. Today we're going to be looking at the new Young Thug album, Punk. Young Thug has been around for ages. I have known about Young Thug since Jeffrey mixtape back in, I want to say like 2015 or something like that. It was a mixtape that I really enjoyed. And then I went back and looked at his like Barter 6 mixtape, and I went back through some of his work and have been keeping up with him ever since, really. Back in 2019 he released an album called So Much Fun, which was his first official studio album, even though he's released countless mixtapes and projects and stuff, collab works and all sorts. I didn't love So Much Fun. I know a lot of people did, but I remember when it came out I listened to it a couple of times and thought, this is going to be an album that everyone forgets about really quickly, and this is going to be an album that nobody's remembering in a couple of weeks, even though at the time everybody was like losing their minds over how good they thought it was. I thought it was quite generic trap. I don't think that Young Thug utilised his voice in the most kind of interesting ways or like experimental ways that we've kind of become accustomed to with Young Thug. I think that it was a little bit lacklustre, to be honest. So then when he announced Punk it might have been a couple of months ago actually, it's been a little while coming, this album, I was excited because I liked the look, the aesthetics of the album. So I really like the cover, which will be here on the screen. I think that it's really cool. It's like a throwback to that old painting that is very similar with two old people sat together, and you can kind of see two faces as well as two people sat on chairs or whatever. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was a really cool album cover. The title being Punk was really interesting, seeing if he went down a kind of punk rock route, or, you know, if he used any of those kind of sounds. He didn't really. That wasn't really something that happened on here, so it's interesting that he called it Punk. Going into this, which I listened to now maybe 3-4 times, maybe even more than that, to be honest, I was expecting to get some fun tracks. I wasn't quite expecting the route that he decided to go down. So in this review, I'm not going to go through track by track like I have been in some of my past reviews, because I want to try something new out. I want to see if it works, me just kind of giving my ideas unfiltered on the album. On some of the tracks I will call out some of the tracks, some of the ones I like the most, some of the ones I like the least, but we're not going to go through each track by track to try and keep the length of the review down to a more watchable kind of length, really. So yeah, going into this album, I thought it was going to be something that I got a couple of fun tracks out of, some trappy, you know, drum loops and some interesting vocal inflections from Young Thug, like we always get. It's not quite what I got. We did get some bangers, like the song, the one with Juice WRLD, track number 7. I think that is a really kind of stereotypical kind of like banger. It's got a really hard beat. It's something that you can play in the car. It's something I played while I was running. It was a really good song to kind of like get pumped to, if that makes sense. But the majority of the album used quite a lot of acoustic, slow sounds, and it was something that I really, really liked. So on the first track, Die Slow with Strick, it has this kind of like guitar line, acoustic guitar line being played with almost this vocal spoken word passage. Discusses kind of Young Thug, where he's at, what he's up to. He mentions his kids. He's got like 6 kids, I believe.
Why do we have to have all these kids?
He mentions his lifestyle at the minute, what's going on, and it's all very quite melancholic, and it's really nice actually. It's a really nice introduction. Then you go on to the second track, which is called Stressed and features J. Cole and T. Shine. Now a lot of people really didn't like the J. Cole feature on this album, so before I listened to the whole project, I saw on Twitter people saying, oh, J. Cole has got an awful feature on this or whatever, and then I listened to it and I was really confused, because sure, I don't think it's by any stretch of the imagination J. Cole's best feature he's ever done. I think, you know, last year and the year before, J. Cole was doing a lot of features that were genuinely incredible, working with the likes of 21 Savage and Wale and all sorts, and I think it was really cool to hear. I don't think this feature is on par with some of those features, like on the track a lot with 21 Savage that got nominated for a Grammy, but I do think that this is a decent feature. He's trying to match the typical kind of energy and flows that Young Thug generally brings to his work, and I think that he's coming to Young Thug's place rather than just doing a typical J. Cole feature over a Young Thug track. And I think it sounds alright, it sounds decent, there's a lot of energy. Some people were moaning that he was shouting a lot, but I thought it sounded fine. I thought it was good. It was, you know, okay, maybe not amazing, maybe not brilliant, but it worked. It worked on the track. It sounded fine to me. Some other tracks I wanted to call out. So the third track, Stupid Asking, is another kind of acoustic, melancholic sounding track, and it reminded me of That's On Me by Mac Miller. I'm a big Mac Miller fan. I love Mac Miller's music. On his latest album, the posthumous album that came out, Circles. He did quite a lot of acoustic singer-songwriter-y sounding tracks, and I think that Stupid/Asking is similar in vibe to some of the tracks on there, like That's On Me. I think that I enjoyed the repetitive kind of over and over repeating, is you stupid, or whatever. And then there was a switch up towards the end with the asking part, but it didn't kind of detract or take away from the track in any way. I think that it sounded good. It still sounded very good. Other songs that I wanted to kind of highlight, I think that Icy Hot with Doja Cat wasn't a brilliant track. I get that Doja Cat is hot right now, is, everywhere, you can't get away from her. She's got some really good music out. She released her own album, Planet Her, I think it was called, earlier this year, which was decent. I listened to that, it was fine, it was good. I think that this track, Icy Hot, is just a little bit cringe, a little bit awkward.
It was super awkward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's terrible, because I'm sure some people will get something out of this, but I think that, it wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. Then we got a track called Love You More with Nate Ruess, who is the lead singer of the band Fun, or was the lead singer of the band Fun. I saw that they were actually working on a track together. I saw pictures of them in the studio a couple of weeks ago, so I was expecting this collaboration, and that was really interesting. It was great to hear Nate Ruess's voice over a more trappy, hip-hop inspired song. He still sounds really good. He always has done. Young Thug sounded good as well. I think it was really cool to see Young Thug working with Drake and Travis Scott on the track Bubbly. Drake's been everywhere this year with his album Certified Lover Boy, which you can go back onto my channel and check out my opinions on if you haven't already. Just as a brief kind of overview, I didn't love the album, but I think that Drake sounded good on here. He sounded good on here, and Travis Scott sounded really good on this track. Travis Scott was the highlight for me, personally. I thought he had the best feature, but I'm holding out hope for a Travis Scott album soon. I have heard that he's working on something, but I'm hoping that we get it sooner rather than later, which unfortunately I'm not sure we will, because Travis Scott can be a bit like that sometimes. Then another track to highlight was Peeping Out the Window. No, that wasn't the right one. Where am I looking? Living It Up, featuring Post Malone and A$AP Rocky. This was really interesting because Post Malone is a glitch. He is a glitch of a feature. If you get Post Malone on a track, it's going to sound good. His voice is incredible. He sounds so smooth. He sounds so slick. It was a really awesome hook that he was able to carry. A$AP Rocky singing in the second half. His feature started off a little bit awkward. I don't think his voice quite matched, and the auto-tune made it sound a little bit odd, a little bit peculiar. But then he settled into his verse, and it came across quite nicely in the end. I thought that was another good song, another fun song, and I think that was a big feature of this album, really. It was just fun. There was a lot of features on the album that made for kind of an interesting listen, and I think that Young Thug knew that maybe he couldn't carry the whole album of 20 tracks all on his own, but that by getting different sounds, artists, features, voices over a number of the different tracks, he was able to carry this in a number of different directions. Even though the album is called Punk, it did have a very kind of almost mellow feel all the way throughout. And like I said, there were a couple of tracks that were more upbeat, up-tempo, high energy, but generally it was quite chill. I think the final track summarises that, Days Before, featuring Mac Miller. Like I've already mentioned in this review, big fan of Mac Miller, so it was awesome to see a Mac Miller feature because his estate haven't really been giving out features recently. I think they've handled it quite well actually since his passing away. I think that they have been quite selective with the artists that they've allowed to have Mac Miller features, artists that he's clearly worked with, and I actually heard that he might have recorded this with Young Thug only a couple of days before he actually passed away. Don't know if that's true, I just read it online, but either way, it was nice to hear Mac Miller's voice. I don't think it was the best Mac Miller feature I've ever heard, but it was just nice to hear his voice since his passing, because we don't get that much posthumous work from him, like I said. But yeah, overall, how was I feeling about the album? Let me answer it. I think that I liked this a lot more than So Much Fun. I like this a lot more. I think that So Much Fun was disappointing and was the same track over and over. I know that he did on this album use Gunna a lot because they're good friends, and I was disappointed to see Lil Baby not on here actually. That was a critique that I had of So Much Fun, that Gunna was used over and over and just got the same track. And I think that this album, Punk, doesn't do that. I think that there is enough variety that you're going to find something on here you probably like. If you're into hip-hop, if you've ever liked anything that Young Thug has done before, with his like Beautiful Thugger Girls tape that I know was also very acoustic, whether you liked So Much Fun. I think you're going to find something on here to enjoy. There's enough variety, there's enough energy on some tracks, there's enough mellow, chill vibes on some tracks that you will undoubtedly enjoy some of the tracks on here, even if it's not the whole thing. And I think I didn't enjoy the whole thing, but I did enjoy the majority of it, and I think it's a very good project. Like I said, maybe 4 or 5 times I've listened to it, and it's only been out a few days because I just enjoy. It's easy to put on, it's easy to run to drive to play while you're doing something else, while you're doing a bit of work. So definitely an album I would recommend checking out. I am going to give this a flat. Am I going to give it a flat? I'm going to give this a 7.1 out of 10. That's the score that I'm going to go with for this album. I think that it was a good album. I think that, I know that's quite high, so that could change maybe in a couple of weeks when the hype's died down. Maybe I'll stop going back to it, and maybe I'll find a couple of more of the tracks a bit annoying. Initial thoughts, I enjoyed it. It was good. 7.1 out of 10 is how I'm feeling. Young Thug, he did a good job. I liked the work. I liked the features. Mac Miller was a highlight for me. Post Malone was a highlight for me. Travis Scott was a highlight for me. J. Cole was not as bad as everyone says. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with me. Hopefully you like this more discussional kind of approach to a video. I didn't want to go through track by track by track because I think that can get a little bit formulaic, and I think that it's possible that it might be less enjoyable to listen to if I'm just going, oh, track 1 I liked, track 2 had weird drums I didn't like. You know, I thought it might be interesting if I just kind of give my overall feeling on the album as a whole and highlighted a couple of things that stuck out to me. So let me know what you thought of that in the comments down below. Please leave a like on the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new around here. And thank you for watching. Cheers. Oh, so nice to hear Mac Miller's voice. Get all in my feels all over again. Leave before I end up getting sad.